Now we can see.
Thank you. So first we will understand what is Docker. So Docker is a open source platform. Okay, Docker is a open source platform. So what is meant by open source? Is not, it is a free of cost. It no need to pay anything. So that means it is a open platform. So what is the use of Docker? The main use of Docker is automate the deployment, scaling, and management of application using containerization. Management of application you can. So it provides a way of packaging, package the application and required dependencies. So dependencies. So simply we can say Docker is a open source platform, and using Docker we can automate the deployment and scaling and management of the application, manage the application or manage the application. So what we can package it, and what are the things we can package it. Whatever the required dependencies we need to package those dependencies, we can package it. Like for example, I'm going to develop one application. So in my application I need, for example, so you are going to build one Java application. So with the Docker image. So what are all the ingredients you want to install? Git needs to be installed, right? And Maven needs to be installed. For example, Java needs to be installed. So what we can do, the Docker file, we'll use base image as a Ubuntu. We can use anything. Base image as a Ubuntu latest. And on top of Ubuntu, we can install Git, we can install Maven, we can install Java. After that, we can run mvn install command or mvn package command. So that means whenever you are going to create the package, or else if you remove this, so whenever you are going to create the package, or package in the nothing but whenever you are going to create the image, so these things needs to be in, added into the Docker image or Docker file. With the help of Docker file, this package list we are going to include into the Docker file. So with the help of Docker file, we will create a Docker image. Understood?
That image, what are the things will be there?
Sorry?
Initially, you said that you put the image is there. So what are the things are
No, no,
available over there?
we no need to worry on this. This is the base image. It will pull from the Harbor. I mean, not Harbor, sorry. It will pull from the Docker Hub or your private repository. It is the base image. How we are selecting as a AWS account, right? The base image.
Okay.
Every company will maintain one repository that is called private repository or Docker Hub repository. So from there we can pull it actually. You will know whenever you are going to create the Docker images.
Okay.
So what are the key components of Docker?
And another thing, can we use any other OS, Ubuntu?
Anything here you can use, not in the way Java latest also you can use. You no need to install Java then. Here you are going to try, you are trying to install Java, right? You no need to install, you are installing these two on top of the Java package, Java OS. I mean Java. You can use not only the OS. OS already be there. Tomcat also you can use, or Tomcat 9.0.0 or Sonar. The version you can give 6 or something, or CentOS you can give. If you don't know about the version, you can give latest. Or Red Hat you can give
Tomcat and
9.4.
Sonar also OS.
Those can be images. They're already created base image on top of we are using it. So whatever the images we are already using it, right? That handled by one of the OS.
Okay.
I will just reminder me whenever I'm going to create the images. I will explain you clearly. Just understand the concept. So for example, just understand it. Okay. This is your system. You are going to perform any of the task. What OS you have to install? You need one OS, right? You need one
Yes,
OS, right?
yes, right.
On top of that, you need one OS. On top of that, we are installing some of the packages called Notepad, Visual Studio. Okay, like that. So if we go to Docker, like for example, Docker, what we can do? We can take one VM. Okay, this is called VM. This is for example Red Hat. There Docker. Okay, on top of we are deploying, we are creating Docker images, right? Docker images. So on top of Docker images, we'll have any OS. For example, if you use Tomcat base image run on any OS, whatever the OS they have created by whatever the OS created by Docker Hub team. We don't know, right, which way they have created on top of, which way they have created a Tomcat server on Docker Hub team, right? Until unless you have used and deployed it. So with the help of that, we will use our application like install Java, install Maven, install Git, something like that. We can use it. You will understand more once you dig into the Docker image creation, Docker file creation. Okay. Terms of Docker, how Docker will work, and what components it should be mandatory. First one is Docker engine. Next one is Docker image. Next one is Docker container. Next one is Docker hub. Next one is Docker compose. So what is meant by Docker engine? It is a core component of the Docker platform. How the kernel will work, right? In OS, in operating system, kernel. What is the kernel? It is
Kernel connects
a,
with the hardware. It is easy to communicate with the hardware.
yeah, it is the main component, right? Kernel is the core component for operating system, right?
Right.
So like that, but Docker, the Docker needs to work, Docker engine is a core component of the Docker platform. Docker platform. Okay. So it is a client server application, and it is a, I told you, right? It is a client server application. It is a client server application that allows you to build the images, run the images. Okay, this Docker engine consisting of two one is Docker daemon, another one is Docker CLI. You understood, right? What is Docker engine? Oh, you guys are having any questions about Docker engine?
That means we are building and running images on the Docker engine. Is that sentence?
Yeah, Docker engine is a core component of Docker platform. So without Docker engine, you can't build it or you can't run the application. Okay, so it is a client server architecture and it contains two parts. One is Docker daemon and another one is Docker client. With help of these two, this you can achieve. So what do? Docker daemon is a background process that runs on the host mission. Docker daemon in the sense it will run on host mission in background process. It will run on host mission in a background process. You know, right? Some of the services will run on background process. Continuously it will run, right? So the Docker daemon is responsible. Docker daemon is responsible for managing the Docker objects. It is responsible for managing the Docker objects. Those are images, containers, volumes, and networks. So the Docker daemon, where the Docker engine will install on top on host OS, right? So Docker daemon also will run on host OS in a background process, and the Docker daemon is responsible for managing the Docker objects. Those are images, containers, networks. And also it will handles the Docker API request like Docker pull, Docker pull. What is Docker CLI? It is a command line tool that allows users to interact with Docker daemon, and it provides set of commands like Docker build, Docker run, Docker images, Docker PS, and so on. The commands will be Docker volumes, ls, Docker network, something like that, and so on. So see, the without Docker engine, you can't use Docker functionality. Okay. So what Docker daemon will do, what Docker client will do. So Docker client is responsible for it. Sorry, Docker CLI is a command line tool that allows user to interact with the Docker daemon. So whatever the commands entered by the user via CLI, those commands will interact with the Docker daemon. Docker daemon will run those commands and it will provide you the output, whatever the commands you ran it. So for example, if I run ll command in a Linux, you know what is happening background? Each command have one process running on background. Do you know? This is command line. So you are entering the command, you are entering one of the command into putty, and it will take to the kernel and it will run in a background process and it will give you the output like that. So like that only, whatever the commands you have entered, that commands will forward the request to the Docker daemon from Docker CLI, and the Docker daemon help you to, Docker daemon is responsible to run run the set of objects, whatever the commands or whatever the inputs got from the CLI, those you can run it from the Docker daemon. Those like Docker images, Docker PS, what are the commands you have entered from? Clear?
Yeah, till now it's
Oh,
clear.
okay. So let me explain the architecture of Docker.
Do we have GUI for Docker?
Yes, if you, GUI in the sense you can install Windows also. Yes, we have GUI in Windows if you install.
Okay.
See, this is
Ravi, please put charge to your laptop. It is showing low.
sorry.
Secure charging, I think it is going to low, around 5% or something.
This is the architecture. Okay. See, Docker client means Docker client or Docker CLI. You can say Docker client or Docker CLI. So whenever the commands entered by the user, whenever the commands entered by the user, those commands like Docker build or Docker run, Docker pull, it will connect it to the, it will connect to the this thing like Docker daemon. So whatever the commands entered by the client or client in the sense user, those it will go to Docker daemon. So Docker daemon will process the request and it will execute the things actually. You understood, right? Architecture. You understood the architecture. See what we explained, Docker client, and it will execute the commands, whatever the commands you ran, those commands entered by the user from the client, Docker client, and those will be send the request to the Docker daemon. Docker daemon will run those commands, and it will execute those, and it will back to your command line. So if, for example, if the registry, it will connect to the registry, and if you run Docker pull, it will connect to the registry and it will pull the image. If it is Docker build, it will connect to, it will run the commands in the background process. So when we install Docker package on our VM, there will be two components will be default will install. One is Docker client, another one is Docker daemon. Okay. Docker client is a command line interface. By using this, we can send a commands to the Docker. Docker daemon is a software which will execute the commands sent by the user. Those commands will be like create image, create container, like that. So Docker registry in the sense, it is a central registry where we will maintain all the Docker images. So most of the software's images available in public repository, that is Docker Hub. So a registry contains various public images as well. So that can be used to create the containers. Okay. Docker Hub is a public repository and registry will have one or more repositories also. So we can use based on the versions, Docker pull version, Docker pull something. Based on the versions, you can pull it. So in Docker registry, we can also create our own repository also. There are two having Docker is having two editions. One is Docker CE and Docker EE. Docker CE in the sense community edition, EE in the sense enterprise edition. So we will get some difference between the open source, I mean community edition and enterprise edition actually. So you know, right, what will be the benefits? For example, not only the Docker, if you go to community edition or enterprise edition, some of the less support will have community edition and less support in higher support and proper support in community enterprise edition, right? So actually in in the Docker, it will support all the operating systems like CentOS, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE Linux, Oracle Linux, Debian Linux, all the flavors, whatever the ways we have. So only Red Hat we have the limitations. So up to 8.7, Docker will support. After higher than 8.7, up to 8.7 only Docker will support. After support Red Hat 9, Red Hat 8.8, Red Hat 9.2, 9.3, 9.4. Podman will support. Hello.
So
Yes,
what
please.
is this Podman?
This is kind of Docker is a daemon, right? If you observe
Yeah.
here, Docker is a daemon,
Mm-hmm.
daemonless. We don't have any daemon, so it is more secure and compared to Docker, it is a more secure actually. The
But
commands will be the same.
okay,
Which
The
one is more
commands
secure?
will be the same. Sorry,
Which one is more
sorry,
secure?
Podman only.
so there instead of Docker, Podman will be taking care of all the activities. I mean containers,
Yes, correct.
everything, no?
So for
Okay.
example, if you talk about Docker, 1 minute, let me put my charger. There you guys.
Ravi, after running the commands in Docker daemon, we are building the Docker images.
No, whatever the commands you run right? The Docker daemon will take care to run those commands actually. So
Okay, that
if
will
you
create
come into
Docker image.
Podman, yeah, that will create a Docker images. In your Podman,
So,
you
after
don't
that,
have
how
any
it will convert
dependency.
into Docker container image, how it will convert?
Once the image is ready, so we will use that image to create a container using Docker run command. Docker build is a command to create the image. Docker run is a command to create the container.
Okay.
And
So,
in case of the other one,
Yes,
this is what about this one? If not daemon, there is another thing. No, what is that? Sorry,
Podman.
Podman. So for Podman also same commands: Docker build and
Same.
Docker run. Only, right?
There is no difference at all.
Okay.
Whatever the commands we are going to use as a Docker. Like if you see the Docker, if you want to see the list the images, you can use Docker images, right? So you can
Yeah.
use Podman images to see the running containers, Docker PS. In Podman PS. Everything. If you see
Oh,
the
okay.
Docker network LS, Podman network LS, only the name will be replace. Instead of Docker, we'll use Podman. So
Okay.
the major difference of Docker and Podman is Docker will allow the security. I mean, vulnerable something on host missions. Docker will allow some of the things into the container. Like there is no security. It won't stop you any security things. Podman, until unless you specify the securities, it will allow. Otherwise, it will not.
Mhm.
So now, what is the Docker images? Here we have the remaining 2, 3, 4, right? What is Docker? What is the Docker images? Docker image is nothing but it is a set of a Docker image is nothing but it is a it is depends upon the Docker file. What it is a kind of instructions to follow once the image is created. For example, you have Docker file created. With the help of Docker file, you are going to create the Docker image with followed by the proper instruction. Do this first and then next. Like that, you will follow. We will tell the Docker image to follow the instructions with the help of Docker file. So you know the Docker container. Docker container is Docker container is used to create the containers with the help of Docker image. It is dependent. See what is the I mean Docker file will help you to create the Docker image. Docker image will help you to create the Docker container. Dependent on each other. You see here. See what is it? See what Docker works. Docker use a client server architecture. See Docker client communicate with the Docker daemon. That's what I told you, right? Whatever the Docker client or Docker CLI, whatever the commands you are going to be entering, those will be communicating with the Docker daemon, which manage the containers. The client and the daemon can run on the same system or connect remotely via REST API, Unix socket network. So what is Docker file? Docker file
Ravi, if
is
you
a
share this document, it will helpful to us.
Docker file is a text document that contain instructions. I told you, right? The Docker file has instructions to create the Docker image. So whatever the instructions we are going to be provide generating the Docker images, that instructions it will follow and it will create the images with the layers format. Layers. Each command is a layer. If you see here, multiple layers used by the execute the commands into the container. So whatever the Docker file you are giving it as a command that can be as a one layer. You will understand while trying to create the Docker images. Okay. See, it defines the process to quickly produce an image. The Docker daemon executes those instructions from top to bottom. So whatever the commands, whatever the we don't call it as a command. We will call it as a Docker file instructions. So whatever the instructions you have given to a Docker file, that will execute one by one from top to bottom. Okay. See, what is the use case of Docker? Microservice architecture, continuous integration and continuous deployment, scalability, isolation, portability. See, see portability. I mean, see microservice architecture. Simply, it will manage microservices. That means uh, microservice in the sense APIs. So if you want to communicate one Docker image to another Docker image using Docker network bridge using microservice concept, that will work. So continuous integration and continuous deployment in the sense Docker Streamless deploy the pipeline. I mean, so with the automation, you can deploy you can create the Docker image and you can deploy the image into one of the application server. That is called continuous deployment, continuous delivery. That is streamlines deployment. Scalability. Docker allows easy scaling and applications. See, you can easily scale your application. So isolation. Containers are isolated applications, preventing conflicts between dependencies. So for example, you have two images running on your container. It won't conflict you until unless the port is being used by the same. The application dependencies I'm talking about. So you are running on two different application, your host. So that won't conflict you because of those are two different images and running on same OS, but containers are using different OS, right? So it won't conflict you. A portability. Docker image can run on any machine where Docker is installed. So wherever you want to run the Docker images, make sure Docker package is installed. That's enough. That is the that is the required uh, dependency. See, Docker image can run on any machine where Docker is installed regardless of the underlying OS. You understood at least idea about Docker? What is Docker? How it will work?
Yes, Ravindra, theoretically it's okay. I mean, we'll get more clarity after practical.
Yes, correct, correct. Can anyone share your screen and try to create the Docker Hub account creation? I have it already, so you guys can share and show me. I will help you.
Ravi, I have one more doubt. You said that enterprise edition and community
Community
edition.
edition.
Which one is
Yes,
used?
correct.
Which one is used in real time? What are the advantages of those?
For example, you have any issues on Docker. If you use community edition, Docker Hub team will help you to resolve those issues like you are not able to do some kind of Docker images, any issues we have in your host mission related to the Docker. Community edition won't support you. Enterprise edition will support you because that is a paid version, right? They can support.
Okay, in community edition, if you face issues, so where we
You
get
have to
resolved?
resolve. You have to resolve it by searching Google and everything. There is no support team to resolve those issues.
Okay.
Are you sharing? Okay. Are you sharing? Huh?
Ravi, I already have account, so I can directly sign in. It's just asking email, username, and password. After giving the
Yeah.
credentials, we'll get
This is
OTP,
not
then
kind of. This is kind of just Gmail account creation, actually, guys. So just simple steps, actually. It is very straightforward.
they will just
Gmail
ask
and
OTP verification.
yes, correct. So if
That's
you
it
once you
only.
log in, you will see on right top the name username as Harish7654. Go to Docker Hub, the repositories. Yeah, Docker repository are already there. Okay, Docker Hub. No, no, on top left. Can you go to click on, yeah, Docker Hub?
It is not moving here.
Repositories.
I need to search images on this search page.
There is
So
no
it is.
repositories in this namespace. Can you search here? Java. Search Docker Hub. Java. See? Java. Just click on Java. See? See? These are all the Java packages are available. Java Docker Hub repositories are available. Docker Hub images are available. These are all the Java images, Docker images available in Docker Hub. Yeah, do one thing. Do you have AWS server ready?
No, Ravi.
Can you create one AWS account, server to install to set up Docker?
For that, I need to do email verification. So that Gmail is another person. So right now it is not possible.
Okay. See, can you go to top? Tomcat. See,
And
this is
just
the
tell me
Tomcat
that's it.
image.
So I will try to talk
Yeah,
to.
this is the Tomcat. So if you want to pull, you can pull the Tomcat image. Official images. You go to official images.
Where Ravi? This one.
Explore official images. See what images you want. See Postgres. See, these are all the images already pushed by the Docker Hub team. Background. Postgres is one of the image. MySQL DB configuration, all the one of the image. And then Nginx is one of the image. See, these are all the images. Can you little bit down? You will see the Docker file instruction. So Docker file links. Little bit down. Little bit down. Down, down, down,
Is the repository.
down. We'll get one Docker file instruction.
This one only. Ravi.
No, not
Docker
Docker
file
file.
link.
Respect to Docker file links, those are. Can you open any of that one?
This one.
Now, Docker file instructions we have, right? One statement.
Can I open this one or?
Any of them. Any of. You see, this is the Docker file from Alpine. So see, whatever the Tomcat you are trying to utilize, right? That is building on Tomcat OS. That is building on Alpine OS. See, 7th line number.
So for this case, we are responsible to create Docker file.
No, we are the responsible to create the Docker file. Yes. Just I'm right. I told you, right, we will use Java as the base image, Tomcat as the base image, SUSE as the base image. I told you, right? So for that, just I'm showcasing you. If you are using Postgres as a base OS, Postgres as a base OS, and Postgres is installed on Alpine Linux. Alpine 3.20 is the OS of the Alpine. If you go to Java, this base OS already installed by the Docker, already configured by the Docker Hub team. So if you want, we can also create one base OS, and on top of that, we can also install. But the creating of the base OS is very critical. We have to, critical in the sense, you are the responsible for everything, like from booting files, like how the ISO image we are going to create, right? For example, you have Windows. Windows, which OS you have to install? 10 or 11, right?
Yes.
You know what are the 10 OS or 11 OS needs to be configured, all the dependencies, configurations, bootable files, everything. You don't know, right? Until unless we have some set of instructions or something like that, right? That is the reason we are already using the existing base OS. Can you go to one more image? Above previous tab. Previous tab. Can you go to previous tab? Yeah, go to Java or Tomcat, any of the image. Java. So if you use Java, for example, if you use Java, you open any of the Java or Docker file. See, build pack depths is the instruction. That is the base image. Like that, we will refer the OS, base OS. What is the base OS?
Harish, can you go back to the Java tab? So all these are supported or supported links, right? So where are the steps to install?
Which installation? Docker
Uh,
container
with,
or Docker image?
for example, you want to pull this. How can we pull this? This is a Java image, right, Ravindra? And if you want to pull this, how can we pull this?
Yeah, to go
This
top, Harish.
Is this the
command we
command
have
docker
already.
pull Java?
Yeah, the command we
Right.
have already. Can
Okay.
you go top, Harish?
Sir, I am in talking with.
Yeah, Docker pull Java. It will pull latest. If you want to pull respective version, you can give recent tags here. Recent tag
Okay.
section. Java :6 or Java :6 -JDK or Java :6B38. The recent tags, you can use it.
Okay, it is like if we have a plain Linux system, first we must install Docker and then we
Yes,
must run this command. That's all right.
yes.
And when we come to Windows, how can we do that?
Windows also same.
Okay, I'm not aware where we can run that. We will run in CMD or
CMD only. CMD only.
okay, okay.
Ravi, if you want this version, we need to give Java :6B38 underscore JDK. Like that we have to give, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. So you can search any of the images, not only this. Sonar.
So in our last classes, we have installed Maven manually, right? So what is the difference between that and this?
Sorry?
In our last classes, we have installed Maven like manually in the Linux. So what is the difference between that procedure and this procedure?
This already configured. Can you repeat again? Sorry.
Harish, can you go back to this Maven page? Let's see the command. What is the command there? Scroll up. Here Docker pull Maven is there, right? So what is the difference if we do like this? If we pull
Yeah,
pull
go
the
to
Docker
Docker file.
image and
Go to the
sir,
Docker file Maven instruction. Go to the Docker file instruction.
Is it fine or can I open another one? Hello?
Just open any of the Docker file.
Yeah, yeah,
See, go top. They are installing Maven 3.9.7 and Maven home. They are setting Maven version, entry point. These are all the instructions for the Docker to run Maven package.
but I didn't understand what is the difference between the manual procedure which we did
So
last time.
before
And
Maven, you are installing Java, and Java. After that, we are installing Maven. So see in the line number 3, you are installing line number 1, we are installing Open JDK 17 version. So that is already installed, installing as a base OS. So after that, they're manually doing the curl command, downloading the package with 3.9.7 and copying from Maven and then to the respective path. So you will understand.
Okay. Okay,
Vishal.
Ravindra. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, guys. Tomorrow we will
Ravi,
option.
initially you are sending the assessment. Now you are not sending the assessment.
No. This weekend I will send. I don't have. I did not get chance to.
Assessment means like nothing like interview questions from you.
Yes.
And what about your point of contact, Ravindra? You will be contacting Arun or whom?
Arun only.
Okay.
Okay, Ravi, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravindra.
Thank you, Ravi.
Harish, do we have any action plan on this
Action.
chat which is going on? No, like people are
Yeah,
in
I will
WhatsApp
call you.
something.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
call you.
Okay, Harish.